I'm Andrew, and I've been working with Effect for the last year or so. Before that, I was a leader of several different companies, some in the private sector, some in the public sector. And for the last few years, I've been working at the interface between industry, policy making, and education, particularly vocational technical education, research and higher education. And what particularly attracted me to Effect is one of these companies that has a fantastic track record of actually working in China. And for so many people, they say to me, Andrew, working in China takes some time to do. Effect's been doing that for 15 years now, and therefore it's a treat really to work with them on a whole range of new projects about getting business going in China from the UK.
Okay, I'm Lily Lin. I work for Effect as a global business development person for facilitating educational, culture, and businesses between China and the rest of the world. So, Andrew, you went to China with me in April, and what was your first impression about the country?
Well, for me, Lily, it's an absolute eye-opener. I think like a lot of people growing up in the West, you have impressions about China and the pace of change in China. And certainly when I arrived there, the first thing that strikes me is it's a very fast-growing, very vibrant, very modern kind of a place, a very ordered place, a place that really works. A place where you feel completely safe any time of day or night wandering around the cities. It's a very easy place to be. A place where people are very welcoming. And I am sitting down at the moment, but I'm 6'7", and that's quite a fright for people anywhere in the world. The Chinese people tend on the whole to be a little smaller than the Western people, but you never get any of that sense that people would come and interrupt me in my day. If I make contact with them, they love that. They're very welcoming, very friendly, but there's no sense of people in any way wanting to interfere with your day. Just very, very respectful and very easy to be. One or two other things, people before I went, you have to watch out for the pollution. No, I didn't see any of that. And part of the reason, is that as we know, the Chinese now are taking the Paris Accord really seriously. They lead the way, actually, in cutting the carbon dioxide and all that kind of stuff. So in ever so many respects, I went there not knowing quite what to expect and came back with an overriding feeling of, I just can't wait to get back there.
So how you see China in today's world?
Well, I think that's a great question and a really important one, because today's world is a world of real challenge. With major demands about the environment, major demands about how the economies of the West are going to succeed, how globalization's going to work and so forth. Well, there's 5 words the Chinese use to describe the future they want to see for China. And that would be green, open, sharing, innovative and collaborative. And I think about those words and I think to myself, on the lips of which leader in the world would you not like to hear those words being said? I mean, these are great words, they're the right words. It's no surprise, therefore, that China has signed up with the Paris Accord and will make really meaningful contributions to cutting the carbon. But it's on a much bigger scale than this, because all of these words would be good in any case, but they're particularly good in the context of China's program for internationalizing. I want to come back to the word internationalizing, but in essence, it's built around this concept the Chinese have of one belt, one road, which they want to use to the old Silk Road and the old trade belts from the Eastern world, the Western world. They see as that need revitalizing for a modern world where trade in ideas, trade in goods, trade in services, trade in the sense of people moving between countries to work. That's the way that China sees the future. And they see that Belt and Road as two-way. So international means between nations. This to me is a better word to use to describe the way we're going to operate with each other around the world than globalizing. Globalizing tends to mean kind of domination of one place or one corporate over others and all the rest of it. International means we are different nations, we have different histories. The Chinese civilization goes back thousands of years. And what we need to do is respect that and understand that and work with different countries. And to do that, you have to be the kind of people and the kind of places other countries want to work with. This is great news because the Chinese are looking for a world in which they understand China's a third of the world's people, and it's going to be the biggest economy. It has a leadership role automatically out of that. And actually, the Chinese view is China can't live without the world. The world can't live without China. So for all of these kind of reasons, I think it's time to build these relationships. It's a very good time for business to think of developing in China. And it's a great moment, actually, in our world for looking at a kind of leadership that will get us out of some of the holes we might otherwise get into if all we ever think about is the narrow national interests of individual nations.
So tell me about a bit more about your role in EFEC.
So I'm the director for strategy and innovation with EFEC. What the role really is to work with Chinese state-owned enterprises, Chinese business parks, in fostering innovation, enterprise and business link between the UK and China. What this is involved in is really getting people to understand, if you're working in business, say here in Northern Ireland, and you're thinking that maybe China is a place that might have something to do with your best interests as a business in terms of growth or supply chain or market or whatever it might be, EFEC is in the ideal position because as a relatively small company, we work with top-line organizations who can help you on that journey. So we construct a journey for you that says what you need to know as a business is all sorts of things. What are the regulations that you've got to come up against? How does the law work? What can you do? What can't you do? What's the qualifications? Do I need to be qualified to do something if I'm trading in a service, for example? If I'm trading in manufacturing and goods, what's the supply chains inside of China? What's the opportunities for being in China and exporting to the Southeast Asian market? What could I expect to be the return on investment if I go to China? What support is there in China? The EFEC company is great because it operates not only here in the UK with all sorts of businesses that can support us in helping you with that journey, and that's the way we work with them, but also in China, we have people who are expert in the law, expert in the market, who operate these business parks, who can come up with all the right deals and support for your company to decide that now is the time to engage with China, understand what the opportunities are and make something of those. So it's a great company to work with in this capacity because we work, as I've said, with all kinds of organizations that have expertise we can draw on to make that journey from just thinking about maybe China tomorrow to actually tomorrow being in China and looking forward to an even brighter tomorrow after that, trading in China, either into the internal Chinese market or from China outwards into the Southeast Asian market. Lily, can you tell us more about your background?
Okay. I was born in Shanghai in early 70s. My generation is the luckiest generation, not because we have witnessed the great change taking place in China, but also we are part of the change, especially in the Yangtze Delta region, including Shanghai, Jiangsu province and Zhejiang province. I was a teacher in Shanghai for 11 years before I moved to work and live in England. I started as a Mandarin teacher for a year. Then I became a manager to facilitate the educational and cultural links between Essex County Council and Jiangsu province in China. Then I left Essex and worked for an American company and a big international company supporting their educational business development in China.
So Lily, you are a citizen of the world, born in Shanghai, working in the UK, worked in America. When I was a kid, nobody came or went to China, you know. Nowadays, many, many more people moving around. Can you tell us a little bit more about the impact and the sort of scale of that in today's China?
Yes, I'm just one of the millions of people in China actually have this opportunity to come study and work in West countries and full of ideas go back to become the sources for the Chinese innovation and collaboration with the rest of the world.
So one of my impressions, particularly in Shanghai, was it's very much like walking around a Western world, you know, city. Is there a connection between this new generation of people who are traveling the world and coming back to China and the way the culture is developing?
Yes, Shanghai is a bit special in terms of the culture is so westernized, and so I'm not surprised Western people go there feel it's quite easy. People speak good English, and the facilities are so easy for Western people to go and live and work there. But when you go to other places like Jiangsu province, Zhejiang province, you feel the same, because everybody speak English. That's the compulsory education. You have to learn English, and people expect to have a good command of English to be able to get a good career. And so that's part of the Shanghai culture, I would say, or Chinese culture, because the culture is open and friendly, eager to learn from the West, and want to be part of the
whole world.
They want to be part of the whole world. Yeah.
You mentioned there about language. Can you tell us a little bit more about the? If I were a businessman thinking of going to China, I didn't speak any Mandarin, to begin with, what would your advice be? What's it going to be like for me?
I feel like just take it easy. When you go there, you feel people very friendly. They respond to you. They're eager to speak English with you, and you get everywhere. You have bilingual and signs, so that's no problem. But I do think it would be really good if you could learn some Chinese before you go, and not just because learning Chinese help you to communicate better, make people feel like you are a very good guests, but also I think this is a tool help you to get into Chinese culture, and also have some advantage of being able to see the world from different perspective. I'm so excited and delighted to know, the wonderful Mandarin learning teaching taking place in Southwest College. And personally, I think, this is exceptional. Not just help the students to understand the Chinese culture from the language perspective, but also I think this is a great opportunity for business people actually have spent some time and learn Chinese and get a perspective as well. I think once you have some kind of level of Mandarin speaking before you go to China, certainly help you to build and maintain the relationship with the people in China.
Lily, one of the abiding memories anybody would have going to China for any time is the wonders of food. Mm-hmm. Again, it's different for food in England in some respects it's quite similar. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us again, if I were thinking of going to live there or set up there in business, what might I expect? What are the opportunities in food? What's it like eating in China? I have spoken to all my Western colleagues who have been to China. One of the highlights is actually about the food. The food in China is different from the Chinese food you get in the UK or the rest of the world. In terms of English food or French food or Italian food, so no problem at all. You will find very easily good quality Western food, and with different choices as well. And so food is actually a good topic for the business people working and living in China. Again, one of the experiences working in China is eating is a round table, and the table itself rotates. So different dishes appear at different times. You can take as much as you like or as little. Can you tell us more about how that Chinese style of eating happens and the connection between that and the business community? Yeah,
actually, the food always the big part of the Chinese culture. Not because Chinese people love trying different types of food as the rest of the world, but also they regard that as a great opportunity for building the relationship, networking.
Another really important question, if I were to go try to set up in China, I'd be wondering about where I would live. What can you tell us about accommodation and the typical process for business people setting up in China?
Accommodation is not a problem. So many people go to work in China, especially in Shanghai, a lot of expat community there. And if you go there for a short period of time, so many choices in terms of hotels. If you like Western style, always good quality international hotels there. If you would prefer for some serviced apartments, they're also available, very popular. And for a bit long term, if you live and work there, and there's so many agencies there, they are ready to help you to find the ideal, suitable accommodation for you. So very convenient.
Can you tell us more about transport infrastructure, how you get about China?
The public transportation is so convenient. So you go everywhere, like metro or buses, and they are so well connected, so convenient, and also very cheap. Take Shanghai, for example. They currently have 16 lines operating. So it's very convenient. So also about the fast train, bullet train, travel between the cities, major cities, and at a high speed, they could do 300 kilometers in an hour.
After work, there's lots of opportunities for entertainment. Can you tell us a bit more about the entertainment and life in China?
Yeah, I think this is also one of the highlights for the Western colleagues to go work and live there. Cultural visits, because the transportation is so advanced, they could go to nearest places at the weekend and appreciate the interesting places or historical interesting places, museums, theaters, and so much to see, so much to learn. And the other thing is the Chinese performing arts, very rich. Take country opera, Peking opera, for example, and you just immerse yourself into the Chinese culture from artistic perspective, which is really nice. But if you would like to get some, entertainment from the Western perspective, that's also very easy. And, a lot of musical, they're on in the big cities, but also pubs and clubs and, the music, jazz performances is everywhere.